All right, let's talk about the Baylor game last night. The Baylor game instead of the Gonzaga game, because Baylor shocked the world and dethroned the undefeated Gonzaga team in the NCAA Championship.
They dominated them, man. They made Gonzaga look bad. They dominated them.
Yeah, I mean, Renee, you've been following this thing. How impressed were you by Baylor's performance?
I was so impressed. And, so going into it, Baylor, they hadn't, well, I should say Butler from Baylor hadn't shot the ball like great. Like he was shooting 44% from the regular season. I think something like 24 in the tournament. It's called the law of averages. And I kept saying to my family, like, Butler's about to go off any minute now because he hasn't had a great game yet. And we already knew Baylor had good defense, and it just all, like, everything was clicking for Baylor last night.
Yeah, well, after they won, things went down in Texas, man. Have you seen this video of the students going wild?
Oh, my God.
On fire? Everybody in the area knew that the students were going to rage. So the Waco Fire Department actually went and kind of helped keep things under control. The local police were also there because they knew that the students were going to go crazy. They knew that stuff was going to get lit on fire. They knew that people were going to be raging, as with every national championship. And that's exactly what happened. You're seeing a big giant couch fire. You're seeing the kids going crazy. But again, there was a police presence. There was a fire department presence. And from what we're told, everything was, despite how it looks, everything was under control for the most part. Nobody got injured. Everything was fine. Everybody celebrated, and that looks like a lot of fun. I told you I was in a post-NCAA championship. It wasn't really a celebration because the University of Arizona lost in Tucson, and it was crazy. Police were, it was nuts. So I know what it's like to be in the middle of that whole thing.
Y'all were celebrating getting number 2?
I was visiting a friend who was celebrating getting.
You were right.
Y'all throw a rave for second place. That's wild. That's a wild party.
I went to Arizona State.
They just want to party, Renee, down there
in that tournament. I'm telling you, we haven't.
No, but you already knew. So speaking of how they were partying after the game, the coach of Baylor, it looked like he was getting the party started. Yeah. He was yelling to Waco, telling them we got a championship. He looked like he was ready for the turn up. So yeah. I'm not surprised that the students followed suit.
I don't like Baylor as a university because of all the scandal that's gone on there over the years, but I like the players, and I don't want to take anything away from the players.
Yeah.
So I was rooting for Gonzaga because I don't like the history of Baylor, but you got to give it up for the kids. These kids played their asses off. I mean, really, really impressive. And I got to ask, do you think the fact that UCLA took Gonzaga into such deep water just a few days ago had an impact on the way that Gonzaga showed up on Monday night? Because if Gonzaga would have just manhandled, steamrolled UCLA and were able to kind of rest and, it didn't take such an emotional toll, because you could see after the game, those guys were going crazy after they beat UCLA, and it just looked like they weren't their usual full energy self.
Hard to get up again.
Is that a decent explanation, or is that a cop-out?
No, I think that's a fair explanation. And also, here's the thing, Gonzaga, this was my worst fear. So Gonzaga goes undefeated the whole season, literally didn't even have very many close games until that most recent game with UCLA. In 2009, my team was 38-0. I had one game left. I can't imagine losing your first game, and it's the championship game. So I just know the emotional toll of winning that game. Jalen Suggs was jumping doing exactly what Baylor was just doing in the pictures.
Yeah.
I mean, it takes a toll on you. It does.
Yeah, look, at the end of the day, congratulations to Baylor. They played an outstanding championship game. And, I have a feeling we're going to see a lot of these guys at the next level. Welcome back to the show. Evan here with WNBA superstar turned co-owner of the Atlanta Dream, Renee Montgomery.
Hello there.
All right, we told you this was going to happen. I feel like we predicted this yesterday, that yesterday would be the defining day for the Deshaun Watson case, for Deshaun Watson, after the very first accuser went public and identified herself. The woman who filed the first sexual misconduct lawsuit against Deshaun came out. Her name is Ashley Solis. She participated in a news conference, very emotional, made some very aggressive statements about Deshaun, and explained why she decided to take legal action. She felt that he crossed the line during a massage therapy treatment in 2020, and her story was very compelling. She was emotional. To me, it seemed very believable. And we had said on this show that we thought that this was going to be a huge moment in the case. Well, it's already, the fallout has already begun, Renee, because Wednesday morning, Deshaun Watson, the sponsors have begun to pull out. Nike is suspending its relationship with him. Beats by Dre, same thing. Reliant Energy, 3 big sponsors are pressing pause on their relationship with Deshaun Watson, and Nike has issued a statement saying, quote, "We are deeply concerned by the disturbing allegations and have suspended Deshaun Watson. We will continue to closely monitor the situation." It's worth noting that Deshaun Watson signed with Nike when he was drafted in the first round of the NFL draft in 2017. He signed with Nike back then, has been with him ever since. They've had a pretty good relationship, and for them to say, whoa, 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 I think that's a pretty big statement.
Yeah, that's a pretty big statement. And you're right, Ev. We kind of all saw it coming. Usually sponsors and brands, they sit back and try to see how things unfold. So this Deshaun Watson story had been going on for a couple weeks now or more, and Nike hadn't said anything. But yesterday, again, humanizing the story, putting a face to the name, Ashley coming forward, it was just too damaging.
Yeah.
Nike can't ignore that. And for everything that Nike's standing for and the way that brands understand that they have to go, you have to take this allegation serious. So
Yeah.
for Deshaun Watson, I mean, I know that they're trying to say that this is all a setup and that this is a scam, but now the brands are starting to take it more serious.
For his part, Deshaun Watson remains adamant that he did nothing wrong, and he believes he's the victim of an attempted shakedown, that these women are lying and they're trying to extract some kind of a monetary settlement from him. So for Nike to hang on as long as they did, you know, that shows to me that they were trying to ride with Deshaun as long as they could. Like, Deshaun is saying he didn't do it. He hasn't been charged with a crime. We're going to stand behind our athlete. That's fine. But after Ashley went in front of the camera and said what she said, I think that there were people at Nike, obviously there were people at Nike and Beats by Dre and Reliant Energy who said, man, this is becoming very tough to continue to defend Deshaun Watson now. And so instead of saying, let's continue to ride this out, they said, we've got to take some kind of public stand here because we're going to lose the public at some point. People are going to start calling out.
To that point, like, the brands, they're in the perfect scenario. You know, they said they suspended his contract. So they're not saying that they completely canceled his contract, that they're doing away with it. What they're saying is, until we find out some more, we're just going to leave it here. So for them, you know, that's what they have to do, because you can't be seen as backing someone with all these allegations. And again, this is allegedly, but the brands are not breaking up with Deshaun just yet. They're suspending the contract because, I mean, you have to take this serious. And if Deshaun Watson and them are adamant about this is a shakedown, well, now's the time to start coming out with some type of credible proof that this is a shakedown, because now we're seeing faces to the names.
Yeah, so you have 21 or 22 women who have filed lawsuits against Deshaun. You have Deshaun putting out a statement from 18 more massage therapists who say that he's done nothing wrong. So at the very least, you have Deshaun Watson, who's, you know, using around 40 different women to do massage therapy on him, which we've talked about on the show. It's a little weird considering that he's a top flight athlete with access to some of the top massage therapists in the world and doesn't need to be going out and finding his own massage therapist on social media. He could be going through the team. He could be going through his agency. He could be going through his medical team, whatever. That's a little bizarre. The video of watching Ashley Solis was compelling. The brands are pulling out, and you got to wonder if at some point Deshaun Watson and his team say, okay, let's break out the checkbook. We need to end this once and for all. Welcome back to the show. Do you guys remember the MMA fighter who had his finger ripped off in the middle of a match last week? You guys remember this?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, definitely.
Most gruesome fighting injury I've ever seen.
Yeah, his name is KHETAG PLIEV. He's 37 years old. He was fighting for the Cage Fury Fighting Championship in Philadelphia when his opponent grabbed his finger and ripped it clean off of his hand. It happened on April 1st, but it wasn't an April Fool's joke. This was a real medical emergency that happened in the middle of a fight. Remember, staffers in the arena actually busted out flashlights and were looking for the finger underneath the ring. They ultimately found it. He was rushed to the hospital. The finger was reattached. This is one of the most bizarre things I've ever seen in my life. Well, guess what? Just 6 days later, after getting his finger reattached, PLIEV was already back out on the streets, resuming his MMA training, showing off. Yes! Yes, Renee. He had the fingers sewn on, and look at him out there running wind sprints. And then he even gives a message. His goal, he wants to ultimately get signed by the UFC, and he's been telling us that for days. And he shot this video in hopes that Dana White from the UFC sees this and signs him. Take a listen.
Finger back in place. One finger for one contract UFC. Back to training, praise God. Amen.
Yeah, one finger for one contract with the UFC. Praise God, help me. That's what he said. Babcock, you think this is going to happen?
Y'all better sign
Sign
that,
him.
man. I'm going to tell you what. There's no way, and I am a former athlete in the WNBA. There is no way in 6 days of reattaching my finger that I'm doing anything, much less out there running red sprints. Because I don't know if people know, but when you run and the blood starts flowing and pumping, that is very painful.
And you're putting your hands are driving up and down. He should have worn like a mitten or something.
Something. Something. So the fact that he did not do this, UFC, y'all got to give him a contract. Come on now. Come on.
I told you, I spoke to Dana White about it because he asked us. He goes, yo, can you guys talk to Dana and see if he's interested? And I did. I hit up Dana. I was like, what do you think? And he's like, this guy is as tough as they come. He was very impressed by this fighter. I don't know if he's going to offer him a contract. I don't know that. But I will tell you that this man is on Dana White's radar. And when Dana likes you, things tend to happen. So look, this guy's out there and he's running around and I don't recommend that anybody else do this at home. But, good for you, PLIEV. Just keep an eye on you. Don't lose the finger this time. If you attaches again, and make sure you put like a tracking device on it so you can find it right after. Welcome to TMZ Sports. My name is Evan, along with Michael J. Babcock.
What's up?
WNBA superstar / co-owner of the Atlanta Dream, Renee Montgomery.
Hello there.
And we've got to start the show by paying tribute to DMX, a hip-hop superstar who made a massive impact, not only in music, but in sports as well. And that's why we're going to talk about him at the top of this show. He passed away Friday morning after suffering a heart attack. Our sources tell us, unfortunately, it stemmed from a drug overdose. DMX's history of substance abuse was widely reported. He's acknowledged it over the years. It was a very sad way for him to go. But I kind of want to focus on his life and his impact right now when we talk about him, because everybody from LeBron James to Adrian Peterson to Mike Tyson, the biggest sports stars in the world are speaking out about DMX and how much he meant to them. We've seen Mike Tyson walk into fights playing DMX's music. Anderson Silva used to walk into the ring playing DMX's music. People like Steven Jackson have DMX's quotes tattooed on their body. This guy was not just important to the world of hip hop. He really inspired and uplifted athletes and showed them, motivated them. He was a man of God. He was a man of faith. And he helped people see that you can become a global superstar and still, hold on to those values. And it meant so much. Renee is a professional athlete, and I know you've come across tons of international superstars like Prince. We were just talking about this yesterday. Can you kind of tell us the impact that DMX made on the world of professional sports and basketball in particular?
Well, I say this all the time, and now it's rapped about a lot, but athletes and entertainers are synonymous because we want to be them and they want to be us. But the reason I say that is because you name any rapper, if they go to a court, they're sitting courtside, they want to shoot, they want to be on the court. And then you look at how many athletes are actually rappers themselves. Damian Lillard, Iman Shumpert have put out, Kobe put out an album. But that's just to say that comes from something, that comes from an influence. And so when you get influenced so heavily by someone, you want to emulate them and do what they do. And as you said, people have DMX lyrics tattooed on their body. They can recite full songs. And he was just a whole mood. So, yeah, that is felt definitely not only in the hip hop culture, but in the sports community as well.
Yeah, man. Like, even for me growing up, like it was Biggie and then it was DMX. And it was like the soundtrack to your life growing up in the late 90s and in the early 2000s. And he just, like that DMX swagger that he had. And I think it went so well with sports. And I think that's why so many superstar athletes had held this guy in such high regard. And it's devastating news. And you're seeing that out of the sports world and out of the music world.
Yeah, there is a former NBA player, actually, who tried to get involved with DMX and really help him with his addiction issues years ago, and that is Jason Williams. Jason Williams was an NBA superstar who had his own problems, went to prison, had addiction issues, and has since, for years now, has operated a rehab facility in Florida where he helps people battling substance addiction. There was a time in 2018, he knew DMX well. He actually had a really close relationship with DMX. And at the time, DMX had just pled guilty to tax fraud and was going to go to prison. And Jason Williams had begged anybody who would listen to him. Prison is the wrong place for this man. He needs to be in a rehab facility, my rehab facility. I know him. I can make an impact on his life, and I can help this guy. We spoke to Jason Williams back in 2018 about this, and this is what he said at the time. Take a look.
Of course, who doesn't know DMX? Growing up in New York City, we run across each other all the time. You know, 8, 9 o'clock when dog turned to wolf, we see each other out. I just was fortunate enough to come down to Florida 28 months ago and get clean and sober, and came through and put a program together where we do outdoor adventure therapy during the day and go to class all afternoon. And Mike Kaiser, people at Atlantic Records, people all over saying, man, help Earl, help DMX. Let me tell you something. He's sick. He's not deviant. He's just a sick individual who needs to get off of drugs, get his life together so he can take care of his children, pay his taxes, and be a good member of society. And I think he got that in him. Now that he's really scared, he's really up against the wall, he's nervous, we can really help him down there. Who doesn't love DMX, man?
Yeah, Babcock, I know you've spoken with Jason Williams since DMX's passing.
Yeah.
How does he feel about the whole situation right now?
He's devastated and he's confused. He said that he hadn't heard from DMX, and he felt like if DMX was really struggling again, if he had relapsed with the drugs, DMX would have reached out to him. So he's devastated. He's sad. He's looking for answers. And this was somebody that Jason went out on a limb, and he really wanted to help DMX. And to see him only pass away at the age of 50 is really hard for Jason Williams, to be honest.
Yeah, look, DMX made a huge impression on all of us. His music is legendary. Go Google him. Go YouTube him. Go watch his videos. He's awesome. R.I.P. DMX.